So I want to share a recent personal story that highlights why I feel it's more important to listen to our inner knowing or intuition rather than signs or mental chatter. Many others have talked about coming into a state of awareness where synchronicities begin popping up everywhere. And that's happened to me often over the last year. And during a car buying experience, they almost felt like a roadmap leading me to a specific car. I can also exhaust myself with mental chatter and analysis that can clutter my overall energy and dampen my decision making ability. So, I've been shopping for a different vehicle for several years now to replace my camper van. Ultimately, I've been wanting something that is more fun to drive and also has four-wheel drive. Part of my delay for getting something different has been due to price absurdity that is still lingering since the pandemic. Part of it has been me still enjoying the space and utility of owning a camper van, and part of it has been simply complacency and indecision with what I want. But I finally sold the van at the end of 2024, and after much browsing and test driving, decided to bite the bullet and purchase a truck in February. So here is where I want to talk about how my mind and following signs led to that decision, not my intuition, and how it ultimately led me to lost money, time, and energy for a vehicle that I bought, and then a week later convinced the dealership to dissolve the purchase. Yeah. So throughout the buying process, I completely ignored my physical body, which was telling me it wasn't a visceral hell yeah. And I let my mind talk me into settling for something that was good enough and not what was in my highest alignment again. So I've done quite a bit of work around self-awareness and have practiced listening to the sensations in my body enough to know that it is a direct connection to my intuition or my inner knowing when trying to make a decision. For me, that yes is an energizing type of excitement. There may still be some butterflies or a little trepidation towards something new or unknown for those bigger decisions, but it won't be five-alarm fire warning bells or that feeling of wanting to shut down or run away. But since I'm telling this story, it demonstrates how, even with that self-knowledge, I can still ignore it. So I took the whole situation as a practical reminder that I still need work around putting it into practice. I consider that a silver lining, and I think there are two more of those in this story, which I'll get to. So without going into all of the details of what transpired, these are the key things I did that took power away from me and led me to a decision based on mental reasoning or bargaining and not heart-centered intuition. 1. I bought something from sheer mental exhaustion and not wanting to look anymore, instead of stepping back for a minute to recharge and refocus and not mentally force my way through a decision. 2. I trusted the word of the dealer's mechanics and ignored the guidance of the Akashic Records to get a third-party mechanic's opinion. Yes, I realize this is just good practice, and I thought I had covered my bases, but obviously not. 3. I felt pressured to buy a vehicle based on some kind of interpreted timeline that I received in readings, like a deadline was looming. But this happened over a period of many months, and energies and timelines shift. So what may have been relevant at one point in time probably shifted. This is not to say that there wasn't a window of opportunity that I missed, but deep down, I believe possibilities cycle around until we choose to step up and step into them. Yet I still let some kind of internal FOMO energy take over. 4. I followed what felt like clear signs from a reading a couple of days before and also literal in my face signs and events that happened leading up to the test drive, which doesn't mean that they weren't there and meant to be messages, but there's always the possibility of misinterpretation, and the information I was getting from my body once in the vehicle didn't align with those signs or messages. 5. I considered opinions from others that if I didn't jump on the opportunity, that someone else would, and I would miss out on a great vehicle. 6. I ignored my body when it was struggling to want to send a deposit, which I mentally wrote off as recurrent limiting beliefs around money. 7. I ignored my body when it told me to take one more test drive before finalizing the sale, to give myself another opportunity to say no and just be okay with losing the deposit and wasting some time and gas on making the trip. So, immediately after the purchase, on the drive home, when the power steering pump started acting up, and after finding several other things that needed fixing by my local mechanic, I felt the warnings that my body had been giving me come full circle. The dealer did agree to have their mechanics fix the power steering pump and look at a couple of other things, and I appreciated that, but my intuition was still screaming, "This isn't your truck!" When I set the appointment to get it fixed, I also felt a deep knowing that I would not be coming home with the truck, and had everything set for me to clear my things out and get a ride back with some family who happened to be going that way for a completely different reason on the same day. In some way, I didn't seem to give my mind another option of coming home with the truck, and I think the universe responded to that energy. When I left the repair shop and drove into the dealership a mile and a half down the road, the truck was already having the same power steering problems that they had supposedly just fixed. So the dealer wanted me to take it right back, and I, in a calm, matter-of-fact demeanor, told them that the truck they claimed they sold me wasn't the truck that I bought and I didn't want it. Both the owner and the salesman had minor emotional meltdowns, but I wouldn't back down. And in the end, it cost me a little extra money, but I walked away from the dealership and hitched a ride back home with my family, exactly like I knew it was going to happen. And let me tell you, I felt free. Free! So here's that second silver lining. It has taken me a long time to be able to get to the point of being in my own power in a confrontational situation like that, and to also not care about any judgment around owning up to what can feel like a mistake. In the last few years, I've chosen to come from the perspective that quote unquote mistakes are valuable lessons, and the expansion from that work isn't lost on me. The third silver lining is a shift that I noticed around one aspect of my relationship with money. So, 4 years ago, I had put a deposit down on a vehicle and then changed my mind about it after talking to a mechanic and then the car owner getting very defensive and frankly weird. So I ended up losing half of the deposit I put down, and I emotionally catastrophized the situation and how much of a victim I had been. But in this recent transaction, I pretty much paid the dealership to take the vehicle back, losing twice as much money as I had on the other vehicle. But my emotional response was the complete opposite. I took ownership of my decisions throughout the buying process and actually felt happy to have the headache off of my hands. Losing that money in the process was completely worth not having to expend the energy and even more money that was going to be needed in the immediate future. I kind of felt like I won, and my body agreed. It's like the pressure valve was completely released. And what did I win? I'm not sure. Maybe it was simply the feeling of self-empowerment returning to me. So, to close out, I'm going to wander a little off the topic of intuition and more into authenticity. And I'm going to have an upcoming talk on the connection between intuition and authenticity. So, before the salesman agreed to take the truck back, he asked how he was supposed to sell the vehicle. What would he tell people who saw it sold and then back on the lot? Well, first off, this wasn't my problem. But my answer in the moment was that he sold the wrong vehicle to the wrong buyer. And I didn't care if he made me out to be, the bad guy. But what I feel the better response would have been is that he could try to tell the truth. If he and his mechanics had been completely transparent from the start, it's doubtful I would have talked myself into buying the truck, and we wouldn't have even been in that situation. Then he would actually be living up to that 5-star dealer rating that he wanted to be. The record said in a reading the other day that those who are living in their full authenticity basically can't lie because they're so aligned with the truth of who they are, however that looks for them. And I think the energy of truth is a huge driving force on our planet right now. We have, in so many big and small ways, seen and unseen, allowed the truth to evade us and accepted whatever else we've been presented with. Here in the US, it's kind of an accepted practice that car dealerships, especially used car lots, are likely to be shady and will use manipulative tactics or lie to make sales. And it's so hard not to yell, "Why did we ever accept this? And why are we still doing business with them?" I know there's so many reasons why, but I feel like our inner awakenings are leading to a place where we are so hungry for truth from others. But to get it, we also have to be willing to be the truth of ourselves, don't we? Seeing the political shifts that are happening here and elsewhere, the uncovering processes that will help reveal some of the truths behind our social and political structures are feeling a bit crunchy. The deconstruction is making space for reconstruction in a really clunky, scattered, seemingly self-serving way. I kind of imagine it like peeling off the band-aids that have held everything together so the wound can finally get some air and find true healing. But oh, that process can be smelly and painful. So, I don't know how long it's going to take or exactly how we're going to get there, but I do believe there's a silver lining coming from this process that feels very ugly right now. And many of us are going to learn how to trust our inner knowing again and not follow so many distractions and distractors. I feel like we're already in the process, aren't we? Okay, so that's everything for today that I wanted to chat about. If you would like to comment and share, I am curious to know how connected you feel to your intuition or anything you want to share or ask about truth seeking that is happening in your world right now. And as always, I appreciate you being here and spending your valuable time listening to my experiences and my thoughts. Of course, if you're curious about an Akashic reading for yourself, the link to my website is in the description box. Thank you all, and I'll catch you next time.